This happened a few months ago. I was 32 and working as an intern at the local hospital. I took night shifts in the morgue for extra pay. At first, I thought it would be a simple way to earn cash. But those nights haunt me now. On my third night, I was alone when I first heard it. Soft music floated through the room. I thought it might be a glitch in the sound system. It made me uneasy, but I shook it off and focused on my work. The flickering fluorescent lights made it hard to concentrate. I felt like someone was watching me, but I just pushed it out of my mind. The music was quiet at first, almost background noise. I kept sorting files and bodies as best I could, but the tune grew louder. Familiar and disturbing, it lingered in my head. I tried to ignore it, but I could hear it even when I didn't want to. As the shifts went on, things felt off. One night, I noticed the file cabinets were open. I was sure I had closed them. A chill ran down my spine, but I decided it must be fatigue. My heart raced, and my palms got sweaty. It was just my tired mind playing tricks, I told myself. But then I started seeing shadows. They popped up in my peripheral vision like quick flashes. I looked over, but there were just shadows dancing on the white walls. I told myself it was the flickering lights. Nothing to worry about. But the feeling of being watched wouldn't go away. Then, one night, the music swelled to an unbearable volume. I felt cold, and goosebumps crept along my arms. I tried to concentrate, but my hands trembled on the metal table. Whispers joined the music. They were soft, but filled with dread. I turned, wanting to see if someone else was there. But the room was empty. The air grew thick, making it hard to breathe. I knew something was wrong. I stood there, frozen. I glanced around, hoping to find an explanation. I was probably imagining it all, but part of me felt trapped in this nightmare. Then the music stopped. Just like that. The silence was heavy. My heart raced as I wanted to run out of there. But my legs felt like lead. It didn't feel right. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, but there was nothing. Just the stark emptiness of the morgue. My breath came in quick gasps. I was scared of what I might see, but terrified if I didn't look. Now, I still think back to that night. I never went back for another shift. I still don't know why I heard the music or saw the shadows. It still creeps into my thoughts, a reminder of something I can't quite understand. The days after that shift felt surreal. I avoided the hospital, telling myself it was just a fleeting moment of fear. But I couldn't shake off the memories. The shadows. The whispers. The music enveloped my thoughts like a shroud. One afternoon, I met Sarah, a fellow intern. Her energy was warm, a stark contrast to the cold memories that haunted me. I needed to talk to someone, so I confessed about my experiences in the morgue. As I spoke, I glanced around to ensure no one overheard. I don't think I'm cut out for that place, I admitted. Sarah frowned. You heard things? I've heard stories about the morgue too. Some people think it's cursed. Cursed? I scoffed, but the tremor in my voice betrayed my disbelief. I thought it was just my imagination. She leaned closer. People have reported strange noises for years. They say the lost souls still linger there. Her words lodged in my throat. I couldn't help but feel an undeniable connection to my experience. Was there really something beyond my imagination? As I pondered this, she offered to help. Let us go back together. You need to face it. There's probably a logical explanation. I hesitated. I had sworn off the morgue forever, yet a twisted part of me was curious. What if there really was something more? That evening, we drove to the hospital, the sun setting behind us like a warning. The darkening sky loomed as we stepped inside. The corridors felt different with Sarah beside me. Her presence was a comfort, but the air still felt thick, heavy with unspoken truths. That we reached the morgue door. The lights flickered, casting strange shadows against the cold steel of the tables. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Are you ready? Sarah asked quietly. I nodded, but didn't feel convinced. The door creaked open, revealing the dim room. At first, it looked untouched, but something felt wrong. My chest tight with anxiety, I stepped inside. It didn't take long for the music to start again. A soft melody trickled through the room, just like before. I froze. Sarah looked at me, eyes wide. Do you hear that? I whispered, the sound wrapping around me like an old memory I never wanted to relive. Yeah, she said, her voice trembling. What is that? The familiarity of the tune twisted in my gut, pushing me over the edge. I wanted to flee, but I stood there, frozen. The music grew louder, and then the whispers joined in once more, filling the space with a confusing haze of dread. "Let us get out of here," Sarah urged, grabbing my arm. Just as we turned to leave, the lights cut out completely. In that instant, everything fell silent. The darkness felt alive, and my pulse raced as I strained to hear anything. Then, out of the shadows, a figure appeared. I couldn't breathe. My heart drummed violently in my chest. I squinted into the darkness, searching for familiarity, but I couldn't make it out. This time, it wasn't just shadows. I felt a presence. "Who is there?" I called, my voice cracking. I stepped back, but Sarah remained frozen beside me. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the lights flickered back on. The room was empty. "Let us go," I shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand. But as we rushed for the door, I realized I hadn't seen what was there. And now, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread for what might come next. As we burst out of the morgue, the corridor felt impossibly long. I could still hear the remnants of the eerie melody echoing in my ears, taunting me. I pulled Sarah along, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "Did you see that?" I gasped, my voice still shaky. She was silent for a moment. "No, but I felt something." It was like the air thickened. We pushed through the exit and out into the stairwell. The fluorescent lights flickered yet again, casting shadows on the walls. I needed to escape, yet dread filled me with every step. "Maybe we should tell someone," Sarah suggested, wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead. "Tell them what?" I snapped. "That we heard music and saw a ghost?" The yellow laugh. "Maybe, but we can't just ignore this," she insisted, her eyes scanning the dimly lit stairwell. I sighed, knowing she was right, but hating the idea of going back and explaining any of it. "Look, let us just get out of here first." We descended the stairs quickly, our footsteps echoing. I focused on the thud of my heart and tried to shake off the chill that lingered in my spine. Once outside, cool air greeted us, but it didn't calm my nerves. Sarah glanced at me. "Are you okay? You look pale." "I'll be fine," I replied, not wanting to admit how rattled I felt. We stood there for a moment, both of us catching our breath. Then Sarah pointed to the hospital entrance. "What about the security guard? He might have information." The thought was hard to swallow. I still had my reservations. But I nodded. "Okay, let us check him out." As we walked back toward the entrance, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. My skin prickled. I glanced back over my shoulder, but only dimly lit parking spaces stretched behind us. There was nothing there. Inside, the guard was lounging at the front desk, an expression of boredom on his face. When we approached, he looked up, clearly surprised to see us back. "Everything okay?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I exchanged a glance with Sarah before diving in. We were in the morgue just now, and we heard strange music. He chuckled, surprising us both. "Ah, the music. You're not the first to hear it." "What do you mean?" My heart skipped. His smile faded. "Sometimes the old speakers activate by themselves. They play random tunes. It's creepy, I know." I glanced at Sarah, unsure of what to think. Was this a simple explanation? Before I could speak, the guard continued. "But some legends say that in the morgue, it's not just the speakers. Folks often feel a presence. You could say some spirits just don't want to leave." The room grew heavy with his words. I felt the shadows creeping back in, the memory of the figure haunting me. "You believe in that?" I asked, my voice feeling small. "Where there's smoke, there's fire," he replied, leaning back in his chair. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed behind us, snapping my attention. I spun around in time to see the door to the morgue slam shut. "What was that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide. "I don't know," I replied, dread pooling in my stomach. The guard's expression turned serious. "You two should stay away from that place." But I couldn't shake the urge to go back. My thoughts were racing, and I felt a pull, a compulsion to uncover what was really going on. Before I realized it, I was moving toward the door. "I have to see." "Wait." Sarah grabbed my arm, but I was already in motion. The door beckoned, and as I stepped in again, I felt the darkness wrap around me like a shroud. There was no turning back now. The air inside the morgue was thick, clammy, and it smothered me as I stepped back through the door. The dim glow of the overhead lights flickered, making the shadows dance along the walls. I gripped the door handle tightly, half expecting it to swing shut behind me, sealing me inside. "What are you doing?" Sarah hissed, her voice barely a whisper. "I need to find out," I replied, not fully convinced myself. I was both terrified and curious, the haunting melody still echoing in my mind like a siren's call. As I moved deeper into the morgue, my eyes adjusted to the light or lack of it. I scanned the room, searching for anything unusual. The metal drawers lined the wall, their cold surfaces brimming with secrets. But who could blame them? It was a morgue after all. I ventured past the first drawer, my heart racing. Then I spotted something out of the corner of my eye. It looked like a shadow slipping between the rows, something alive in this cold, lifeless space. I felt a surge of fear, yet it drew me in. Did you see that? I vacillated between disbelief and excitement. What? Sarah exclaimed behind me, her eyes wide. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but my feet wouldn't budge. I think someone's here. I started moving toward where I'd seen the shadow, each step heavy with dread. My mind raced with thoughts of what could be lurking in the darkness. The guard's warning echoed in my head, but I brushed it off. Whatever was here, I had to know. Please, Sarah begged, voice trembling. We could just leave. Just give me a second. I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. Then I heard it again, the music, faint yet haunting. It was exactly like what we had heard before. I felt compelled to follow its thread, its melody tugging at something deep within me. I stepped forward cautiously, ignoring Sarah's frightened protest. The sound grew clearer as I approached the far side of the room. There, hidden behind a curtain, was an old record player. It was unplugged, yet somehow it still played that same eerie tune. I paused, staring at it, a chill creeping down my spine. That shouldn't be happening. It's not even on, I whispered, my confusion battling my fear. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and I could see my breath in the air. I felt a shift, like the room had exhaled, and the curtain began to sway slightly, as if someone had pressed against it. Get back, Sarah shouted, panic escalating in her voice. I took a step back, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I could feel the heavy presence around us, thick and palpable. There was something more going on here than just an old speaker malfunction. I wanted to bolt back to the safety of the hallway, but curiosity gripped me. And then everything went black. The lights flickered violently before plunging us into darkness, leaving us alone with the music, the shadows, and a growing sense of dread. Sarah? I called, but my voice echoed only in the silence. I could barely see an inch in front of me. The darkness closed around us, thick and suffocating. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. Sarah, are you okay? I hated that my voice shook. Yeah, I'm fine, she whispered, though I could hear the fear in her voice. What do we do? We need to get out of here. The music played on, each note wrapped around us like invisible strings, coaxing me deeper into uncertainty. We can't just leave. What if someone is in here? What if they need help? What if it's a ghost? She snapped back, her impatience turning to fear. We don't know what is going on. Ignoring her, I reached out my hands to feel for the curtain. My fingers brushed against the fabric, cold and soft. It was a strange contrast to the metal and concrete around us. I pulled it aside, and the old record player stood exposed in the shadows, a beacon of the bizarre sound. Suddenly, the room shifted again. A faint light flickered to life on the far side, just a glimmer, but enough for me to make out a figure standing near the drawers. My breath caught in my throat. Who is there? I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. My heart raced, but all I heard was the music and the quiet sound of my own breathing. Then the reflection of something metallic caught my eye, a scalpel glinting in the low light, its blade sharp and clean. Panic surged. Sarah, we need to go now. But as I turned to grab her hand, the flickering light went out, plunging us into complete darkness once more. I felt her grip tighten around me, fear radiating from her. Please, let us just find the door, she urged, her voice rising. I stumbled, trying to remember where we entered the room. With every step, the shadows whispered around us, filled with tension and unseen eyes. That's when I heard something else. Soft footsteps. They echoed through the room, rhythmic and deliberate. My heart jumped into my throat. Is someone there? I croaked, my voice trembling. The steps paused, and for a breathless moment, all I could hear was the sound of the haunting music weaving through our rising terror. Keep quiet, Sarah hissed, her grip tightening. We need to stay low. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I pressed against the wall, the cool surface grounding me ever so slightly as the footsteps started again, moving closer. Each step sounded like a drumbeat, each pause filled with dread. The air felt charged, like electricity before a storm. Then everything shifted again, and another flash of light illuminated the figure I had seen before. This time, it felt much closer. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. In that fleeting instant, I saw the distinct outline of a face twisting in anguish, eyes wide and hollow. It was a memory caught in the shadows, a fragment of the past longing to break free. "Run!" Sarah shouted, her voice snapping me out of my trance. Before I could react, the light went out, and we were plunged into total darkness, the music still playing, wrapping its tendrils around us. The footsteps neared. I lunged forward, pulling Sarah with me, desperate to escape whatever entity lingered in the dark. My heart raced as I felt us moving toward the exit, but the shadows closed in behind us. Then, in a moment of desperate connection, I realized we weren't alone. Someone else was with us in the dark. I couldn't breathe. The air felt heavy, thick like smoke. The footsteps continued slow and methodical. I hesitated, glancing back toward the source of the sound. The darkness felt alive, breathing with a sinister rhythm. "Keep moving," Sarah urged, pulling me toward a barely visible doorway. My mind raced. The figure, was it just a trick of the light? A figment of my imagination? I had to push those thoughts aside. Fear was growing like a storm that we stumbled into the next room, where the dim flickering of light seemed more frequent. I squinted against the brightness, which was erratic, barely illuminating the filing cabinets and charts scattered across the floor. A sudden, sharp noise made me jump, a file cabinet falling over, metal crashing against metal, loud and disorienting. "What was that?" Sarah's voice trembled as she stepped closer to me. I don't know," I stammered. Everything felt disjointed. I could still hear the music faintly threading its way through this haunting place, a melody plucked from a forgotten era. But it was becoming dissonant, twisting with fear. We moved farther into the room, desperately searching for an exit. "Look," Sarah pointed toward another light flickering, this time at the end of the hallway. It beckoned us like a lighthouse cutting through fog, but as soon as I saw it, the light blinked off. Instinct took over. I pulled Sarah forward, one hand brushing against the cold wall, the other gripping her tightly. My heart was racing so loud I was certain it drowned out the music. "Wait," I said, stopping suddenly. "Do you hear that?" The music, the notes had shifted, becoming distant sobs and eerie whispers. It felt like the walls were alive with stories. Something was deeply wrong. "This way," I whispered, redirecting us back to the hallway. We had to get out. Each step felt surreal. As we moved, my thoughts echoed in my head, repeating questions. What was this place? Why did the music keep playing? But as we approached the entrance, a sudden chill swept over us. The door slammed shut with a resounding bang, sealing us in. "Let us go back." Sarah's face was pale. Panic flared in her eyes. "We can find another way." "No, we can't. We have to figure this out." My thoughts churned. Next to us against the wall was something shiny. I moved closer, finding another scalpel. This one was stained, dark gray against the light. I recoiled, realizing I was holding it. Then everything went dark again. The whispers rose, growing louder, almost angry. The air crackled with raw energy, making it hard to think. Everything was spiraling out of control. Sarah grabbed my arm, her voice sharp and frantic. "We need to get out of here. Now." But before I could respond, I heard a voice, a soft, pleading cry emerging from the shadows. "Help me," I froze. It was impossible to tell where it was coming from. My heart raced again, but this time with a mix of fear and compassion. "Who are you? Where are you?" I called out, barely able to hear my voice over the music. "I'm trapped," the voice echoed. Hauntingly fragile, I turned to Sarah. Her expression mirrored my dread. "We can't leave someone behind," I said, even as my instincts screamed for the opposite. But the darkness pressed in, and every second felt like a choice between safety and the unknown. Suddenly, shadows moved. I lost my breath as something shifted deeper in the dark. This was no longer just a fight for us. We were entwined in something much larger. The whispers grew frantic, surrounding us like a storm brewing. I needed to know more, but as I reached for the voice in the shadows, the lights sprang back to life. And that's when I saw it, a figure, writhing on the ground just beyond my line of sight. My blood ran cold. "Look," I shouted, pointing to the source of the voice. But as we both turned, All that was left was fog and darkness, deep and endless. And then the music skipped a beat. The air crackled with anticipation, and I felt adrenaline surge through me as Sarah and I exchanged panicked glances. The figure, the voice, everything blended into a swirl of confusion. My heart hammered against my ribs as I searched the darkness, hoping to catch a glimpse of what had just faded into nothing. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered, fear lacing her words. I had no answer. I was just as lost. But I couldn't think about the fear. I had to focus on finding an escape. "We should try to find another door," I suggested, my voice steadier than I felt. We moved cautiously, stepping over the fallen file cabinet. My eyes scanned the walls and corners, desperate for any sign of life or a way out. The silence grew heavy, thick like fog. Each creak of the floorboards seemed like a looming threat. Suddenly, the music returned harsh and jarring, like nails scraping against glass. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out, but it swelled, filling the space around us. I faltered, unsure of my next step. The whispers came back, too, now intermingled with the staccato notes. They blended into a chorus of sorrow and urgent pleas. "Help, stay, run." "Did you hear that?" Sarah's voice trembled. "Yes. It's all around us." "What is happening?" The questions spiraled in my mind, consuming my thoughts. "Maybe it's leading us somewhere," Sarah suggested, though her grip on my arm betrayed her uncertainty. I didn't respond. The more I listened, the more frantic the whispers became. They surged, pulling me toward the darker part of the room. Against my better judgment, I led the way, urging my feet toward a narrow corridor leading deeper into the shadows. Just then, the lights flickered, illuminating an office further down the hall. For a moment, the brightness blinded me. I blinked and squinted as the lights stabilized, revealing a desk cluttered with papers and photographs. I felt an urge to investigate. "Wait," Sarah called, but I was already moving forward. I approached the desk, holding my breath. My hands shook as I picked up one of the photos. It showed a group of people, smiling and vibrant, but something was off. Their eyes seemed to follow me. "Not them again," I muttered, dropping the photo as a pained, gasping sound erupted from behind me. I turned slowly. There it was again, the figure. But now it was clearer, more distinct. A woman, her face contorted with anguish, reached out from the shadows as if imploring for help. "Please, don't leave me," she cried, and I rushed back to Sarah, panic turning my stomach. "We shouldn't engage," I said quickly, backing away. "What if it's a trap?" Sarah looked torn. "But what if she needs us?" Before I could respond, the lights flickered again, and the whispers reached a deafening crescendo. "Help! SHHHH!" The shadowy figure took a step forward, and in that moment, everything felt like it was about to break. "Run!" I yelled, grabbing Sarah's arm and pulling her back toward the way we came. But as we turned, I felt a pull, an urge to stay. I glanced over my shoulder just as the lights cut out again. It was just darkness. Then, I heard the whispers again, now softer, almost playful. "Stay with us." What was happening? I looked at Sarah. Her face was pale, and I felt her grip loosen slightly. "Sarah?" I whispered, panic creeping in. "Let us get out of here," she urged, her eyes wide with fear. Just then, the lights flickered back on, but we were no longer standing alone. A figure loomed in the doorway behind us, dark and towering, blocking our path. "Leave." "No one leaves." My breath caught in my throat. The shift was sudden, palpable. Something dangerous was right in front of us. The music stopped altogether. My heart raced. The towering figure filled the doorway, its shape both human and monstrous under the harsh glare of the fluorescent lights. I felt Sarah squeeze my arm tighter, as if anchoring herself to me. I shot her a quick look, but her terror mirrored my own. "What do we do?" she whispered, barely audible. "Don't engage," I hissed back, my voice trembling. I needed to think, to formulate a plan. The whispers from moments before echoed in my mind, laced with the urgency that pulled me toward the heart of the dark space. But now, facing this figure, the fear consumed me. The silhouette shifted slightly, inching forward as if tasting the air. "You're not meant to be here," it rumbled, the voice low and gravely, a sound that reverberated through the room that I wanted to scream, but instead, I was frozen in place. The weight of the moment bore down on me. "We have to get past it," I said, rage and desperation swirling inside. "We can't," Sarah protested, eyes wide. What if it does something to us? The figure beckoned with a bony finger. Come closer. You'll understand. I shook my head. No way. We need to retreat. But retreating felt almost impossible, with the figure blocking our single exit. Panic bubbled in my chest. Simon, we need to go? My voice rose, filled with a mix of frustration and fear. As I turned to pull Sarah with me, everything went dark again. I gasped. The sudden absence of light was suffocating. I could barely hear Sarah's sharp intake of breath beside me. What do we do now? Just follow my voice, I said, trying to conceal my own dread. My hands shot out in front of me, searching for a wall, anything to guide us. Stay close. The air felt heavy as I led the way, my feet stumbling through the pitch-black void. I focused on the whispers for direction. They seemed to waver on the edge of sanity, dancing in and out, teasing me with half-formed phrases. Stay, leave, and then, just as suddenly as it had gone out, the light pierced through the dark. It was almost blinding. We stood in a different part of the building. I recognized the break room, familiar but unsettling. The chairs were overturned, and the table was scattered with half-eaten food. It felt wrong to be here, memories of laughter twisted by the dread hanging in the air. What just happened? Sarah asked, her voice tiny, as she looked around. I don't know, I admitted, the ache in my chest tightening. But I feel like it wanted us to see this. Before Sarah could respond, the music returned, this time softer, rhythmically pulsing. It filled the room with a haunting melody mixed with laughter, creating a sickening sense of nostalgia. Please make it stop, Sarah whispered, putting her hands over her ears. I glanced at her. There had to be an end to this. An answer. We need to figure out where it's coming from. Just then, I noticed it, the source of the music. A small radio sat on the floor, its dial cracked but glowing faintly. I moved toward it, instinct pulling me closer. Wait, don't. It could be a trap. Sarah's warning fell on deaf ears as I knelt next to the radio. That S when I saw it, a piece of paper tucked under it. My hand hesitated, then I grabbed it, heart racing. I unfolded it quickly, breath held. The note read, "If you hear the music, you're already lost." My stomach dropped. I shoved the paper back down, but then everything shifted. The shadows in the corners of the room twisted, growing darker, alive with intent. Run, I yelled again, panic pulsing through me as I sprinted toward the doorway, only to find the exit was now replaced by a solid wall. Now we're really trapped, Sarah cried, fear lacing her voice. The music crescendoed, and as the shadows closed in, I realized this was just the beginning. My mind raced, searching for the next move. But before I could think, the room darkened again, and a new voice erupted from the void, echoing harshly. You shouldn't have come here. With that, I felt the urge to flee wrestle with the chilling grip of curiosity. The darkness swallowed us, and I knew we were far from safe. The darkness faded, replaced by flickering lights that barely illuminated the space. I stumbled back, afraid of what I might see. The shadows didn't retreat. They pulsed with ominous whispers, sharpening my senses. My heart raced, a single thought taking root. We couldn't stay here. Over there. Sarah pointed to a doorway that hadn't been there before. The frame was jagged, a rough edge marking a passage that felt both inviting and dangerous. The whispers became louder, calling to us. Do you hear that? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The melody from the radio drifted through the air, eerie and familiar. Yeah, and I hate it, Sarah replied, her eyes wide, brimming with fear. She took a step back, as if hoping to merge with the wall. Just let us go, I urged. We moved toward the doorway, somber anticipation curling around us. I could feel the chill of the air creeping down my spine as we stepped through. We found ourselves in a dimly lit hallway. The walls were lined with faded photographs of past employees, their smiles glaring against the decay. A sense of dread filled the air. Their gazes felt like they were watching us, judging us. Why are we even here? Sarah whispered, clutching my arm. This place is wrong. I know, I said, trying to steady my own nerves. But we can't go back now. We need to find a way out. With each step, the music grew more pronounced. It weaved through the narrow space, pulling us deeper into the unknown. And then I noticed something, an open door at the far end, light spilling out and revealing a room bathed in a warm, almost comforting glow. It's just a room, I said slowly. But maybe it's safe. She hesitated, biting her lip. And what if it's a trap, like the radio? I didn't have an answer for that, and suddenly doubt slipped in. But the pull of curiosity was stronger than fear. We went toward the door, the music weaving around us, guiding us like a lost traveler in the dark. Stepping inside, we were enveloped by the light. The room looked like a storage area for supplies, with shelves stacked haphazardly. And then I spotted another radio, similar to the first, perched precariously atop one shelf. Not again, Sarah said, her voice almost a whimper. Can't we destroy it? No, I replied, my hand hovering over it. Maybe it's not the radio that's the problem. As soon as I said that, a sound ripped through the space. The door slammed shut behind us, and the music stopped. A hovering silence settled in, broken only by our uneven breathing that a figure emerged from the shadows. It was different from the one in the doorway before, smaller, more human-like, but with an unsettling grin carved across its face. You shouldn't have come here, it mocked, echoing the voice from beyond the darkness. What do you want? I shouted, fear clawing at my throat. The figure tilted its head, studying us. To play, of course. Before I could react, the lights flickered out, plunging us back into darkness. Panic surged like a tidal wave. I reached for Sarah, but the space felt different now, alive with menace. Don't leave me. Her voice trembled in the void. I'm right here, I replied, straining to hold back the rising dread. But the music began again. A twisted version of the familiar tune echoed through the darkness, and as the laughter returned, I knew we were in for a game we hadn't agreed to play. I could feel the shadows closing in, ready to snatch us away. I was about to scream, but instead I whispered, we need to find a way out now. The figure laughed, the sound chilling me to the bone. There's no way out. And in that instant, I realized we had to face whatever horrors lay ahead. There was no other choice. The darkness surrounded us, a living entity that felt hungry for our fear. The music twisted through the air, each note contorting into something sinister, echoing off the walls with an almost mocking tone. I felt the weight of the figure's presence nearby, its breath like ice against my skin. Stay close, Sarah, I whispered, gripping her hand as we edged toward the flickering light at the far end of the room. As we moved, the walls seemed to close in, shadows snapping around us like hungry jaws. Panic surged, and I fought to suppress it, focusing on that radiating light. We need to get past it, I said, my voice strained. The figure shifted, its grin stretching impossibly wide as it beckoned us closer. You're not meant to escape, it taunted, the voice chilling my bones. In that moment, I felt an urge to recoil, but something compelled me forward, a tether pulling me within reach of its grasp. Just ignore it, Sarah shouted behind me, her fear fueling my urgency. I wanted to believe we could defy this nightmare. I took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising panic, and squeezed her hand tighter. Suddenly, the lights flashed just long enough to reveal our surroundings: cluttered shelves, scattered papers, and then the door we'd seen was blocked, sturdy and impenetrable. It's locked, I exclaimed, taking quick, panicked glances around the room. We need another way out. The music crescendoed, resonating within the walls, as if the room pulsed with heartbeat. I scanned the area desperately, searching for an exit. Over there, I spotted a narrow gap between two shelves, an opening leading into an unknown darkness. Without hesitating, I pulled Sarah with me. No, don't go in there, she urged, panic threading her voice, but I pressed on, feeling the weight of dread at our backs, as if something were preparing to pounce. As we squeezed through, the air shifted, pulling us forward into a smaller space filled with the same eerie glow. I heard whispers, their cadence soothing yet unsettling, rising and falling like waves. You shouldn't have come, they echoed, impossible to pinpoint, surrounding us. Stay with us in the flickering light. I caught sight of what looked like a small mirror resting against a far wall. It radiated a strange glow, enticing and foreboding all at once. I felt a sudden urge to touch it. Sarah, look, I whispered, drawn toward it despite my better judgment. Don't, she yelled again, desperation in her eyes as she pulled me back. What if it's a trap? Before I could respond, the door we entered through slammed shut behind us, rattling in its frame. My heart leapt into my throat as the room descended into darkness once more, the whispers morphing into an anguished chorus. Help us stay, don't leave. The voices blended into a cacophony of sorrow, chanting like an unholy hymn. Get away from the mirror. Sarah's grip tightened on my arm, raw fear shimmering in her wide eyes. I hesitated, battling the urge to give in to the call that seemed to echo from within the reflective surface. Please, I sighed, desperate to escape. With a surge of determination, I turned my back to the mirror, pulling Sarah toward what I hoped was another exit. We need to keep moving. It might be leading us somewhere. As we hurried into the chamber again, the whispers grew louder, reverberating through my mind. Find us, you're close, take the choice. I gasped, bewilderment flooding my senses. Turning sharply, I scanned the darkness for any sign of escape. The music pulsed in time with my heartbeat, a reminder of the danger lurking in the shadows. Just then, the lights flickered back on for a second, and I glimpsed images swirling within the mirror, faces twisted in pain and confusion, their mouths contorted in silent screams. I stumbled backward, while rising in my throat. We have to go now. My instincts screamed at me. Then where? Sarah's voice trembled, genuine fear cracking her strength. What if there's no way out? I didn't have an answer, but I knew we couldn't give up. Mustering a last ounce of courage, I glanced back toward the room we had just fled. We have to keep searching. There has to be, and then everything went dark again. With my heart racing, I felt the ground beneath me shift, rolling like the dark waves of an unseen storm. The music shifted, the menacing rhythm binding me in place. Not again, I shouted, dragging Sarah along as I stumbled forward into shadowed haze. But already, the melody began to fade, leaving only whispers threatening, mocking, full of malice. Then it happened. As if summoned by our frantic escape, the figure materialized again, closer, clearer than ever. Stay and play, it hissed, reaching out with elongated fingers. I felt Sarah flinch beside me, her breath hitching. Run, I screamed, forcing my legs to carry us forward, darting into the shadows as the music surged once more with that familiar, haunting familiarity. In the distance, light flickered at the end of a corridor. It beckoned, promising escape, and yet fraught with uncertainty. There. Before I could stop myself, I bolted toward it, nearly colliding with the doorframe leading out. In that fractured moment, I turned back, willing to confront the darkness. The entity had receded slightly, its form wavering like smoke, but the whispers lingered in the air as a reminder. You can never truly leave. Stay. Pushing through the door, I felt the cool air wash over me, a wave of relief momentarily soothing the lingering terror. But I knew there was no real escape. As I glanced back, I could still hear that haunting melody threading like an echo in my mind, collapsing upon itself. I stepped into the night, the chilling words lingering. Would they chase me forever? I moved to a different part of the city the next day. To this day, elements of that night blink through my memory, the shadows, the whispers, and the dissonant music. I still see reflections in mirrors that aren't mine. Whether they're warnings or echoes of the before, I'll never know. Sometimes, I dare not think of it at all.